Thank goodness you're here.
Hey, I remember some things, just not emails. Awesome. Let's do it.
Welcome to the Honest Designers Show, your transparent look into life as a modern designer. My name's Tom Ross, and I'm the founder at designcuts.com. And this week I'm joined by my fellow Brit and hand lettering expert, Ian Barnard, American retro design expert, Dustin Lee, and the incredibly talented South African illustrator, Lisa Glantz. This week we talk all about how to bounce back from knockbacks in your creative career. We all have days that suck, client feedback that we didn't expect, or the unexpected going wrong. Today, we look at the best ways to tackle these unfortunate circumstances. So without further ado, let's get into the show. So I'm here with the gang, and we're talking about some of our worst days. Kind of negative, right? I feel like we're in a little negative slump here.
Maybe we have like an end goal of being positive, to end on a positive note.
Yeah,
and then
we're solving a problem that everyone has.
I'd prefer not,
helping
Ian.
them.
Get away with your positive vibes.
Get out of here, you.
It would be negative if we talked about something bad and then we were like, well, that stuff sucks when it happens. Have a good night. But we're trying to give some solutions here. So
yes. Oh, we are?
This should be positive. Well, I hope so.
We definitely are. So I think really the point is we all go through those days, right? We've all had the horror stories. Not every day is going to be a great day. And that goes for any job, of course. But we're creatives. And I don't know about you guys. I tend to take this stuff to heart a little bit. It makes me sad. It makes me want to curl up in a ball. It's not always pleasant. So I thought we could look at like some of those bad days that we all shared, how we react to them, what a good reaction is, what a bad reaction is. What say you, fellow co-hosts?
Well, I could start. I'll start with my story of something recently that happened to me that was rough. So we had this is a fresh wound, by the way. So go easy on me, ladies and gentlemen
like
of the jury in front of me. So we did a webinar. We've been doing free and then like premium paid webinars on Retro Supply, and we did one last night, and it just, despite the fact that we had prepped and practiced, as soon as I got on, within 10 minutes, my internet cut out, leaving the other person I was doing the webinar with by themselves. And then I had to wait for like 20 minutes for the internet to reboot up and get back on. And then my internet was slow and I had to turn my picture off. And I just felt bad inside about it. I polled people and asked, how do you feel about this? And 85% of people said they still got, a very good amount of value out of it and they're happy. 15% weren't. 15, not 50, to be clear. Anyways, it just hurt. I felt like I just felt like my feelings were hurt. And I know this sounds really cheesy, but like this morning, I went to bed after it last night when we were done. I felt like it went good other than those technical issues, but I was just exhausted. I went to bed early and I woke up and I saw my little boy. And this is so cheesy to say, but I looked at him and then I thought about, gosh, is there anybody out there that felt disappointed? And I thought, well, what if it was my little boy and he'd grown up and he was disappointed with something?
Cheesy.
And I just, like, you realize that everyone is like a little kid inside and everyone's excited and everyone's like doing things and you want to please them and you want to provide for them and take care of them. To me, it sounds weird to say, but you really do feel like that. And so like, I'm like, well, how do you really feel? You almost want to be like, what can I do for you? Or are you okay? You know what I mean?
Of course.
So I guess the thing is like, what do you do when something that you really could not have stopped? I don't know how I could have prevented that. But what do I do to make it right?
Well, I mean, the important fact here, just to point out, is that you obviously care enough about your customers and your products and, the work that you put out there enough to actually be deeply affected by it. Because, I mean, at the end of the day, that's what matters a lot. because if you just doing this for the hell of it and you're not caring, then I don't know, that's like, it just doesn't feel good. So the fact that you hurt, it's a good sign, Dustin. It's a sign that you actually give a damn. And I think that's like super important. And the fact that you actually like, equated it to your son, and I think it's amazing. I know that it doesn't feel nice, but it's a good thing. I mean, that's a good starting point, should I say.
Yeah, 100% agree.
Mm.
I would add to that, I think the best thing you can do is try and not get too emotional. Like, embrace the fact you care and it hurts you and whatever, but try to let go of that and move past it as quickly as possible. Otherwise, it just becomes not helpful
How do you
and
do that,
depressive.
though?
It's hard.
I need help.
It's really hard. What I do is, and I try and enforce this with the team here, let's say we've got a bad bit of feedback. Human nature is people sit around and debate it and share it, and before you know it, you've got half the team crowded around being like, oh, what happened, what was said, and it becomes this little frenzy, because it doesn't happen that often with us either.
Yeah.
And that's really unproductive. So instead it's like, well, let's stop being hung up and overthinking this and getting emotional about it. Let's actually listen to what's been said and then channel that into a proactive response. Because normally there's some truth in it, unless it's just a complete abject hater. Normally there's something, and I've had like abusive emails, swearing, being horrible, and you want to just write it off and ignore it. But when you actually read between the lines, it's like, it might be an overblown reaction, but if I go into proactive mode, I can take one bit of feedback from that email and make an improvement that's going to help them and other people. So for me, that's the best approach. But you kind of you're trying to care and not care at the same time, I guess is what I'm saying. But you care in the right way. You care by actually fixing it and improving it and learning and bettering yourself, rather than caring by curling up in a ball and crying about it for 3 days, even if that's what you feel like doing.
That would be.
And I do. I feel like taking a Klonopin and calling it a day.
But we talked before this call, right, in terms of some cool stuff that you could do with your community on the back of that. And I guarantee, like, when you start channeling energy into that and then it hopefully is well received, then you'll feel the opposite. You'll feel elated because you're like, oh, people really appreciate that stuff.
And I suppose something you can do, learning from the experience and then applying it to the future, is that you have like a safety net for if that happens again. Like an email can automatically be sent with some stuff on it that is like, sorry, technical issues brought it down. Here's a load of free stuff, or here's another webinar, or no, pre-recorded webinar sort of thing. Like a training session that then pops straight into there, so they're not left with nothing. They're given sort of like, okay, here's, like for instance, I know, like an artist you go and see, like a band or something like that, and for some reason they couldn't turn up, and you got these tickets, but they said, well, look, there's this person who's similar and they're prepared to step in their shoes, and you'll get you might get your money back, or you might get something else. We'll book you another date, but you can have this band instead. And they were like, oh, okay, I'm still coming out tonight. I'm still going to hear some music. It's not who I thought it was going to be, but it's similar. I'm still going to have a good time. And I suppose it's all about the experience. So if you can just adjust, rather than it just being, shut down, there is something that can, be put in its place as like a temporary fix. There isn't just a sudden, this is the, because the first experience is hard to, obviously then draw back from that.
Yeah.
And having something in your arsenal for things when it goes wrong is, I suppose, something that from what we've heard you speaking about is something that could be done.
And not only that, but you can apply your creativity to how you react and the solutions that you apply. So what popped in my head with this example, Dustin, have you ever seen some YouTubers do it where you'll be watching them and suddenly it will zoom out to them watching themselves on a screen? You know what I mean by that? So it'll be like, imagine Dustin is talking and filling the screen of the video. So you're like, oh, I'm watching Dustin. But then suddenly it zooms back from that and you realize you're watching Dustin on a screen within the video.
Oh, right.
And he's watching himself. He's looking at that screen.
Yes.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah.
You see what I'm getting at, Dustin?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he's like looking at like he's
Or
maybe
TV or
editing
whatever.
it.
Yeah, exactly. So, like, if you say put out an apology video or something about this, not only would that have more impact than just an email being like, guys, we're sorry this went wrong. That in itself is great. But you could do a really creative video where suddenly you're talking to camera being like, guys, technical mistakes do happen sometimes. And unfortunately, and then it stops and it starts lagging and it's like a glitch effect happening on it. And then it zooms back from that and you realize that you've been watching you on a TV screen, but you're suddenly stood next to the TV screen with glitching you on it. And you're like, sorry about that, guys. You see exactly what he's talking about. Like technical stuff goes wrong and I hate it and I feel really bad about it. But here's what we're doing to make up for it.
To fix it.
So
yeah.
not only are you like reacting in a positive, proactive way, you create goodwill on the back of it with how you react, but also you're showing your creativity and your branding and your creative skill set in how you produce a video or a bit of content or a graphic or whatever.
Yeah.
As part of that apology.
Yeah.
And also the fact that you are obviously going to be doing way more in the future. This is like a worst case scenario that'll, as Ian said, prep you for what if this happens again? What am I going to do? So it's kind of like I hate when corporates use it. It's like an opportunity, but it is. I mean, ultimately, it's like it's a time for you to go, okay, so if this happens again, I need a backup plan, as Ian said. So
the thing is, the internet is so hard to predict how.
It totally.
Internet, having stuff with an internet connection is always like one of those things that's like, it can be perfect and it can just like you say, just switch off and you have no reason and then you can't get it back up. We've had it done on like this show. One of us has had a real bad problem, couldn't get back on.
Normally me. It's the nature of the information superhighway, guys.
What's funny is it really is like Murphy's Law. I mean, my internet never goes out. It went out at that time. And I should have expected that would be one of the times it would go out. But yeah, I really like the idea of, because I've heard, I think we've all heard some variation of the idea that it's an opportunity to make really great fans or really great customers when something goes wrong, more so than when things go right.
Yeah.
The thing is that it's easy to like forget it when you feel like you've just like been like whacked on the head with a bat. It's like all your self-defense like memory is gone. You're just like kind of like stumbling away like, oh, didn't see that coming. But yeah, I think hearing you guys say it actually helps too, because it's true. It's an opportunity to like kind of leverage the brand more.
So there's an entrepreneur and consultant that I follow who believes in this so much that he deliberately makes his clients screw up publicly because he believes that in their reaction they'll come out smelling of roses.
Wow, I don't know if I'd
It's
be willing
bold.
to do that, but that takes some serious.
So
yeah,
it's not, the world's not over. And also think like it could have been worse. 90% could have been unhappy. 100% could have been unhappy.
15 is still quite low, but yeah, it's still high for us. I mean, that's still high. Yeah.
You know what 15 is? 15 is normal for all these sleazy internet marketer types.
True,
where every time
actually.
they do something, 15% want a refund because it's so crap, and the rest are kind of not that happy, but just don't request a refund.
I don't know.
And they
I
just
don't know if
churn
that
people
last
through
comment's
that.
helping, Tom. I don't know if that's actually.
He's like, you're comparing him to a sleazy marketer.
Yeah.
And then,
Sorry, buddy.
another thing is,
Didn't mean it like
another
that.
thing is that you can like, okay, if my internet goes down, how can I get another internet connection? So for me, I can hotspot my phone and get an internet connection, even if it costs me like, adds another $100 onto my bill. It means I've got another internet connection. So, having that, okay, what if this happens? I've got this to cover it.
Yeah.
Well,
So
I
have
don't know
like,
about that,
contingency.
except for like I happen to live in like a dead zone.
oh
So
no,
my phone only works because of the internet when I'm at my house, because where I live, I guess, is just between where the towers are in a weird way.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just like I'm like the dead zone, like Stephen King, man. It's like that was my only it was my only lifeline to it. But one thing that one thing that really I'd noticed did help is by acknowledging it. So you can do polls, and now, Lisa and Tom, because you've done some webinars with the same software. So you could do polls, and I was just like, hey, how many of you feel like how many of you feel despite this that you got the value or what you expected out of this? Like I said, like 80, then they can say yes or no, and it's anonymous. That's a great part too. So you're getting a fairly accurate number because you can't see who the people are saying yes and no. And then I basically said, well, for anybody who said no, I said, for anyone who said no, stick around for the assessment, stick around for the next webinar. We're going to try to make this, great for you. And if you feel like at the end still it wasn't, then, we're happy to refund your money for it. And anyways, I feel like acknowledging it, and I always find it funny when like big companies don't acknowledge when something doesn't work.
I also find that bizarre.
It's very weird. I'm like, why don't you? Because everyone is always, it seems to me, appreciative when you do.
Absolutely.
You got to sweep it right under that carpet, Dustin.
But seriously, what is the advantage? Why do they do that? I'm so
I don't know.
I literally don't
think
understand.
They're scared of reaction. It's like when airlines are when your flight's delayed, just tell us, like, okay, it's not gonna go, you're not gonna catch your flight tonight, or it's an hour, or just tell us something, But they don't. They just pretend like there's nothing wrong.
And that
I don't know.
infuriates everyone. So,
it does.
Speaking of airlines, what happened with the whole United Airlines thing? When they beat that guy up on the flight?
No.
Do you remember?
I'm in South Africa. I don't know anything.
This was like a year ago at least, I think, where the guy got dragged out of his seat because they oversold the flight.
Yeah, he refused to leave. He was a doctor, and he refused to leave this flight
because he's like, I paid for this.
Going.
Yeah.
Good for him.
And then the security like dragged him out of the seat really forcibly and like smashed his teeth out because it was so forced.
You're kidding?
It was like a PR nightmare. And the reason I bring it up is I don't really. Maybe they put out a statement, but I certainly don't remember like a public
acknowledgement
PR response
of wrongdoing.
Maybe they did, and I missed it. But it certainly wasn't like something that was so out there that everyone saw the apology. Yeah, that's just straight away when we think bad days as a company, that's got to be up there. I thought of the CEO when it happened. I thought, can you imagine waking up to that? Be like, we've got news.
Yeah.
It's like, oh no.
Well, can you imagine then too? And maybe this is why they try to cover things more in these big companies. Is by law, at least in the United States, you're beholden to your shareholders, and to add value to their stocks for them or their shares. So if something bad happens, you have to be accountable to them, and you might feel like, well, if I don't cover this up or try to like act like it's not our fault, maybe our shares are going to drop.
Mm-hmm.
And so you try to deny it.
Yeah,
but that's insane because you should take like as you said, it probably went viral socially. So you should do something to counter that that's equally amazing for people to go, hey, remember the guy that got beaten up by the security? Well, they just gave him a lifetime of whatever, and there's free flights for doctors for the next year. I don't know. I'm just saying,
totally.
like, it's an opportunity, again, using that word, to go, okay, well, what can we do to make it like super amazing for people to go, hey, look what they did,
Well, I remember when the whole thing happened. Remember when the thing happened at Starbucks where there was a African-American people, 2 African-American men were in the Starbucks, and they were waiting for someone, so they didn't order, and they got kicked out. And it became a very big ordeal. They were like, this is, racial profiling. I don't know what the whole deal was anyways. It became a big thing. And Starbucks could have, I guess like not said anything or done anything, but instead what they said was, you don't need to buy a drink anymore to stay here. You're welcome to use the restrooms. You're welcome to hang out in here, and you don't need to buy anything.
And suddenly all the homeless population of the world is like, amazing.
Probably so. But, like I kind of felt like it's not the perfect example, but I kind of feel like, well, that costs them something. That means that, a lot of people are going to take advantage of that and not buy anything and maybe fill up seats for potential customers. But
how much? Like, at the end of the day.
Exactly. Yeah. It's better to go overboard or as much as you can for whatever your company is to try to make it right than to
exactly
retract in.
Yes. Yeah. I agree totally.
And the thing is, it works as well without the bad stuff. It works with the good stuff as well. So when I tweeted about Krispy Kreme using one of my fonts, I wasn't expecting any reply. I was just saying, that this big company has used one of my fonts. It's just good promo for me. And then they go, here you go, here's free, a card for free donuts every month for a year. And so then I would then go tell that story to other people.
Yeah.
And so that is a really good social media, because there's two sides of it. There's a negative that can then blow up, or there's a positive, and then you go, "Well, I had a really good experience with this," and blah 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 blah, like that. And so, if you over provide or unexpectedly provide, then people are like, "Oh, I don't know what to do this. I'm going to have to tell all my friends," or if the product goes vastly beyond what their expectations are. They go, they will tag you and share it on their stories or on their feed and stuff like that.
Absolutely.
So
it's that whole thing of like when people review a product or review services or whatever, their first sentence might be, I had a problem with this product, but then they fix it and they did this. The next paragraph is about how great you are and how amazing they feel about it. So it's like, that's free advertising right there, Yeah.
I want to draw this back to the average listener who's not a big company and is doing probably like client work or something, because I find all these examples super interesting. But for the average listener, they're out there, they're doing some graphic design, some web design, some lettering, maybe some illustration for clients typically. How can we apply this stuff to them? What does their bad day look like? For me, I know as a freelancer is, it could be something like the client giving terrible feedback and hating the design, or it could be something like the print run has really messed up and it looks awful and not what you or them were expecting, and you don't know how to deal with it. So in those kind of instances, how can designers react for their clients?
Well, I think they can apply the same philosophy that we're saying the big companies that are getting it right are applying. So you need to almost like counterbalance that and go beyond what the client is expecting you to do to rectify it. So I'm not saying you need to pay for a print rerun out of your own pocket, but maybe, approach the printer and ask them to either, maybe they can go Harvey's, maybe they can do the next job 20% less or whatever. You need to find a way to make the client feel like you've really gone above and beyond to try and rectify something that was out of your control in the first place, but you still want to show them that you want them to have the best result.
Yeah, 100%. What if it's a case where you've done the work and they're like, this is awful, which seems to have mainly happened to Dustin. So maybe it's good that he's not a freelancer anymore, because he got told stuff like he's got no soul, which is the worst thing I've ever heard. You seem to have meaner clients than anyone, Dustin.
And that Lighthouse and Gorilla.
Exactly. And your work's awesome, and these clients are like, no.
By the way, the sound effects on that episode were great.
Oh yeah,
and they were.
Marco killed it.
Brilliant.
I think we might have, like the rest of us would have got something like wasn't quite what we were looking for. Which read between the lines is we really don't like it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that's something that's happened quite a lot. I'm trying to think of some examples though.
So I guess the good way to react there is, look, like, we're all adults. I don't want to beat around the bush. Like, I don't want to leave you with something that you're lukewarm about. So if you're not entirely happy with this, which it sounds like you're not, let's be proactive here. I want to find out why. Let's sit down. I want to get this right.
Absolutely. Especially if it's a paying client and it's somebody that you want to work with in the future. If it's somebody on the cheap and who wants to really push you, you got to weigh up like the benefits. But if it's a long-standing client or a client that you want to have as a long-standing client, you seriously have to pull out all the stops to make them happy.
Yeah.
You don't want them to walk away, as you said, Tom, like lukewarm. You want them to go, wow, this person really like wants to make sure I'm happy,
And you can be largely more in control of that. I'm not saying you will always send them away floating, but you can be in control of actually doing the actions that should elicit that response. What you can't do is guarantee perfection every time in your work or in the experience, or that no external factors go wrong. Stuff will always go wrong. That's just the law of it, right? So if you know stuff will go wrong at points, like it has for you, Dustin, like it has for all of us, then all you can control is your reaction.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Like,
absolutely.
that's it.
totally.
And I suppose that can be something that you think, okay, you weren't happy with some food at a restaurant. You can say something to the waitress or the manager, and how they respond to you will make the difference between you coming there again and you not.
But you're so right. Yeah.
You know, if they say, well, there's nothing I can do about it, like that would be it. They would not step foot back in there again.
Yeah,
But if
be
they
like-
said, "Oh, really sorry, look, we'll give you some vouchers. Come back another day. We'll go and check up and see what's wrong. Really sorry, really apologetic." You go away feeling better. You might even tell others and say, we didn't have a great time here, but the manager apologized, says, something, might be something wrong with the delivery, or they had a reserve chef in and they couldn't do it. And so you give the customer another chance to come back and experience, and hope the experience will be better the second time. But bending over backwards, because it's not just about that one person or that one relationship. It's about how then maybe your client speaks about you to other people, because more often than not, word of mouth is still the most useful way of promoting yourself. And so you want people to say, "Oh, you've got to use Lisa. She's really good and she's really thorough. Bends over backwards to get stuff done."
Flexible.
And, if it's flexible because of all that dancing.
There's a lot of yoga in the morning.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No, it's true.
100%, Ian.
There was something I was going to say, like the other thing we have to think about as well. So when you have terrible feedback, and you can't actually rectify it because potentially you're actually out of your depth. I've had that. I'm sure you guys, I don't know, maybe you guys haven't, but I've had that. And
What's an example of that?
I think I might have mentioned this before on the podcast, where I had somebody approach me to do some illustration work. I was still not an illustrator back then, but it was still a dream. And I, at that point, was just full-on graphic designer, freelancer, and somebody asked me, "Can you do some illustrations for our van? We do safaris," and that kind of stuff. We want elephants and giraffes and that kind of thing. And it was horrific what I gave them. It was.
I do remember this.
Have you still got it?
No, I don't know. I
Well,
must have
that
it
was a bit of a
somewhere,
pause,
but
Ian.
I don't.
Maybe she does have it lurking around.
I
somewhere.
know. I was just thinking, because
Why do I keep
people say
that?
this, and someone's piece of work they thought was the worst thing they've ever done is something I'd aspire to do.
Yeah, I bet it's way better than anything I can do. But sadistically, I would love to see a crappy piece of Lisa Glan's illustration just to give hope, to be like, she is human.
I will try and find some old ones. I don't know if I'll find those, but I will try and find of the same era
that could
and
be
caliber.
on the Honest Designers Instagram page, from the archives.
Oh, yes, I'd love that. Throwback Thursday.
Oh, that would be cool.
Throwback Thursday. Team who are editing this, listen to that. Dustin, you did this a while back, and you were like, "Look at my early illustrations." I was like, they're really good as well. Like, that doesn't make me feel remotely good about myself.
That's horrible.
I've stopped saying it. Sorry.
Something
Okay,
that I
okay.
found can be really helpful in and this webinar was unique for me because it was this thing with like 100 people or something like on it, and it was a technical issue thing, so it's very different. But something with one-on-one issues that happen with people, I've noticed can be really helpful, is to stop guessing what they want and ask them. If you can make them feel comfortable telling you, and just say, "What can I do for you to make this right?" And then maybe give them a suggestion that's completely outlandish and over the top of what you're willing to do. That way they feel like anything they say after that doesn't sound crazy. Because, people feel like maybe a little timid, like, I don't want to ask for all my money back, or I don't want to ask for you guys to send flowers to my work. Whatever the thing is. But if you say, what can I do for you? Can I do this? Can I do that? Tell me how I can make this right. Then you can, instead of guessing, you can start to get an idea of what would really make things better for them.
True.
Or if I had a magic wand, how could I help make this? How could I fix this for you?
And it may actually involve you walking away, in terms of, I actually don't have that ability to fulfill your your expectation, and
No, totally.
Yeah, and for
It
you
could
to
be
actually turn
recommending
around and go,
somebody.
absolutely.
It's the best griller I can do, damn it. The best griller I can do.
Yeah, you could actually have to turn around and say, well, look, it's not in my skill set, but I can recommend this person. And sometimes eating that humble pie actually goes a long way for yourself and that person, because you actually learn something about yourself and you realize, hey, you got a long way to go still. And that person also walks away, not feeling ripped off and whatever.
Yeah, and next time you turn down the illustration job until you've brushed up on that part of your skill set.
Yes,
Like Ian said,
exactly.
I think we get this all the time. So we can't always make it right. We always try our best, but you better believe next time a similar situation happens, we're going in with our eyes open with a
yeah.
game plan.
Yeah,
Oh,
I think
yes.
we have just. I mean, we've done webinars for a couple of years probably now, but we started ramping them up a little bit, and I think it's like it's a good chance to learn. In fact, when me and Brad got off of it, I kind of we always do a debrief, and I kind of said, that was. I mean, I'd rather it didn't happen, but also like it had to happen at some point, and
That's true.
it's good in a way that it happens because he handled it really well without me there, and then. Yeah, I mean, it's true. You got to take humble pie. Like, you get so used to running a business, sometimes it starts to feel like things always go smoothly. So to have something whip you in the face and be like, oh, hey, don't forget, things can go bad for you, my friend. Like, it makes you like Ian said, I'm like, okay, yeah, you should have something in place. If something does happen, what are we prepared to do already in case that happens?
Yeah.
And almost that's like kind of part of that whole Stoic philosophy thing that I love. Like they say, and I thought about it when this happened. I thought they teach you in a lot of it. Expect the worst, like expect, and then anything that good that happens is gravy. And part of me kind of feels like I should have done that more. I should have thought, what's the worst that could happen?
Yeah, well, I mean, now you know.
Yeah, it was a good reminder, I guess.
Good outlook.
That I think all of us forget, the freelancers, the designers working for companies, whatever. We didn't get this life book given to us with every worst case scenario that could happen to us and how to get out of it. So we have to learn as we go. And I think these things, it's that whole thing of, as designers and artists and all, our kind of creative types, we take things personally. And I think it's a good thing in many ways, but it also can be a bad thing because you can get stuck in that loop and you find it difficult to get out of. But it is a way for us to. It's an opportunity. Sorry.
Yeah.
It's an opportunity to improve. It really, really is, and it's difficult to see that when you're in the hole. But that is really what's going on. And I mean, I was just thinking, Dustin. Okay, so you had a pretty crappy, experience yesterday. But if I spoke to you like 5 years ago and said, do you know that you're gonna like be teaching webinars and you're gonna be doing live events
100
and
people on there.
showing yeah, I mean, you'd be like, what are you talking about? I mean,
what you talking about, Willis?
Yeah. So it's like, it's amazing stuff.
Yeah.
And
well, I think it's very funny too to take it super personally too, because I think to myself, well, if one of you guys told me you did a webinar and this happened, or if someone else told me, I would think, ugh, not so good. And then I would think, that's what happens.
That's what happens.
Yeah, like that's how that goes.
By the way,
when it's yourself, it's very easy to make it a much bigger. How could this happen to me? But
I know.
at the same time, I can kind of imagine being you guys or anyone else, and you're like, well, yeah, of course, Dustin, that's how that goes. Sometimes things aren't so great. So now it's time for you to do your best to fix it, buddy.
Yeah, step up. This is like proper old school honest designers, because this is how the show started before we even hit the record button and released it as a podcast. This was us chatting every week because one of us is like, something went wrong, or I need help with something, or I had a win or whatever. So I hope it's helpful for people, if only in the sense of, Dustin, I know you've got your own audience and a lot of people look up to you and what you're doing, just to kind of show the reality of it and be very honest about that and be like, it's not all rosy. Stuff goes wrong for all of us too. And every other creative on the face of the planet, every design celebrity we look up to, guarantee stuff's going wrong as well. Naming no names, actually, we were talking about a few big companies before this call started. and saying
Oh,
like, go on.
I was going to say, can you cover something you talked about before we started recording, which I don't think you've mentioned yet, which I think is good advice, is could you repeat what you were saying about the importance of the brand versus money?
Was I talking about that?
Oh,
Yeah, so we were just we were talking, and you had said, "I'll
you don't
get you
even know
going."
your own genius.
We had talked, and you had said, "Well, remember."
Oh yeah. Don't
making-
worry about the money of a refund,
Right.
because that's a drop in the ocean compared to thinking about the long term. So whether it's a client who wants their money back or whatever it might be, you're thinking more of the ripples that come from that, and you shouldn't be concerned with getting that client to pay the final installment or trying to avoid making that refund. You should be worried more about the brand, which is much more long term. And that's where it's the stuff we talked about in terms of how you react, the word of mouth that Ian touched on. That's the stuff that ripples out and will be there years later. In 5 years' time, you're not going to be like, oh man, I still begrudge that, $50 refund. You will have forgotten it, but you will feel the ramifications of hurting your brand by not reacting correctly.
Absolutely.
Right.
See, I'm in a position at the moment. This is non-design related, but it might. And it's about a builder. So,
of course.
Oh, my
is this the
word.
builder or one of the many builders you're close
Sorry?
with?
Sorry?
Is this one of the many builders you're close with? Or is this the main guy?
Well, like 2 years ago, I had some repointing done. I don't know if that's something that everyone knows terminology for.
Cool, yeah, a bit of repointing, mate.
Yeah, Dustin looks a bit confused. And that's mainly because I suppose a lot of the American houses are made from wood rather than brick.
Masonry.
Exposed brick. So when you have a brick house, you have the gaps in between it with the mortar. And after, like, our house is about nearly 100 years old. And so, the weather the English weather particularly is like battering against it, and it wears down the mortar in between the bricks. And so at some point you'll have to get someone around to channel out that mortar part of the way and then refill it with new mortar. It's I don't envy the person who has to do that job.
That sounds horrible.
But we had a builder come and do it, and it should last for at least, 10 years minimum. And so I had mine done 2 years ago. And like this summer, I was like, it's looking a bit yellow. And it's like just a mixture of like sand and cement. And I was like, ran my finger across it. It all just started crumbling away. And what it looks like, the builder's forgotten to put the cement, like emass cement in the mix.
So he's just put sand holding your house up.
Yeah, holding up my house. And so, and I've emailed him, and he said, yeah, I'll pop round. This is like back in I don't know, when I emailed about June. Yeah, I'll pop round. Then never did. Oh, I was just wondering when you're going to pop round. Oh yeah, I'll pop round. Are you around tomorrow? I'll pop in then. It still hasn't been round. I even got my sister, because there's an awkwardness of like my sister knows them, and so I'm just like, oh no, I don't want to like bad mouth. It's not who I am. I don't like going on social media and go, look how rubbish this company is.
Checkertrader.com.
Yeah, it's just not who I am. But I was like, just it's like he could have said, oh look, I even sent a video, but it's just like, oh, come and have a look at it. And it's just, that constant like, well, you're not really I don't feel like you're ever going to sort this out.
No,
I know you didn't want
avoiding.
You didn't want to have to out him, Ian, but you've now done it on this show, which has a pretty sizable listenership. So you've essentially,
especially people that do home repairs.
Yeah, exactly. Like any designers, especially in the UK, who are looking for a bit of work on their house, you ruined this guy. His little builder children, they're going to struggle to eat tonight.
I haven't mentioned any
hope you're
names.
proud. Hope you're proud of yourself, Ian.
So if we were to break it down, it sounds
Break it down.
It sounds like the process is to, like, when something doesn't work, acknowledge it and don't try to minimize it, and then find a way to
if you can
make
find
it
a
into
way
an
to-
opportunity to make a positive, or over deliver, I guess you call it, turn it into an opportunity that becomes a positive thing as opposed to a detrimental thing, as much as you can.
Okay, so you're saying acknowledge it, find an opportunity to make it positive. So I've got AFOP. as a helpful acronym for people listening at home. F up. So next time something goes wrong or the webinar software doesn't work, F up it.
It could be FOP.
AFOP's better because mine was only 2 steps. I feel like it needs to be 3. So AFOP, at least that acronyms don't have to be a certain amount of steps.
Yeah.
Goodness.
Just a letter, otherwise.
Well, and then I guess the last thing would be to follow through on it.
Oh, no. F-op.
Oh, that's not going to work. FOP.
So we've come up with the worst acronym of all time.
What are them again? Sorry, what were the
So acknowledge it.
Acknowledge.
Try to turn it into something positive where you're making things better for them to resolve the issue, and then actually follow through on what that thing is. So that guy, like, he did acknowledge it to you, and then he said, you know what? I'm going to pop around in like a week or 2 and get this all fixed up for you, Mr. Barnard. And then dude never showed up, and then all of that goodwill goes out the door.
I mean, he's really just giving you A out of AFOP. And that's useless.
Exactly.
That is actually, that's worse than nothing. That's going, yeah, I did a terrible job. Good luck.
But he didn't really give you the full A by saying, "Oh, I'll pop around to have a look." He's not really acknowledging anything. He's just saying, "Okay, I hear you. I hear what you're saying, but I'm not sure I believe you."
because like I don't know enough about it, about how the process of it is like 2 years are long enough, but like a lot of the mortar on there's been there for like 20 years.
Yes.
And still fine. So it's actually now probably in the worst state it was before. So
I can feel your frustration coming out.
No, his ratios were totally off. I'm telling you.
I mean, it's a little better than being like Scram Barnard. I already got my pounds. I'm out. I mean, it's a little better than that to acknowledge it and say I'll be around. But I think when he said he'll be around, you figured he'd come to your house and help. Instead, he's like, I'll be around the UK doing stuff.
I'll be around, the rest of the Cobra without coming to your house.
Without coming around to your house.
You don't know how happy it would have made me, though, if you jumped on the call and you're like, you never guess what my builder said to me. He said, "Scram, Bernard, I'm out." You're not getting your pounds.
Yeah, that would be funny if you turn up tomorrow. Oh, no, not turn up tomorrow because this goes out next week. But it turned out the day it went live and like, I was listening to the show.
Maybe you should do a custom lettering piece for him and be like, "Fix my house."
Or Photoshop it. Show your house like crumbling into the earth with your kids like wailing in the background. And send him and be like, "Look at what you've done."
Or do some beautiful lettering of the name of his business and then like post it on your Instagram and then share it with him in an email and be like, This beautiful design is waiting for you for your business once you fix my house, sir." Sitting right here in my office.
They might come back to me and go, "It's not quite what we wanted."
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
That's so true. Oh, goodness.
Oh, we have fun. We have fun.
We're a jovial bunch, Dustin. At least we amuse ourselves and each other, if no one else.
I know.
So,
I
go on.
Oh yeah, I know we're wrapping up, but I gotta share this because this is kind of cute. So it was kind of hard last night, like when that happened. Like you take everything personally in your business more than anybody else does, and honestly, it's probably a bigger part of my day than it is anybody else's, even people that attended. But my daughter, she gave me this little like bear to accompany me. It was so cute. She gave me this little bear and to hang out with me, and then like a little good luck ring and some candy. So I don't know. That's sweet.
I like it. That's quite a nice note to end on. I think I would say if the listeners are going to take anything from this episode, it's that Dustin's daughter is considerably more empathetic than Ian's builder. And that's what we can take away.
Does she want a job?
Yeah, she probably does better brickwork as well.
Yeah. Or maybe it's that she gave me more compassion than I gave myself. Give yourself permission to give yourself a little compassion on things.
Well said.
Yeah,
you're probably not an evil supervillain trying to do something. Some things just happen.
That's a really good point, actually, because if you didn't mention that, everyone would go away from this episode and feel super stressed every time something goes wrong. Be like, I need to scramble around and do this super proactive, cool fix for it. And that's great and that works. But yeah, you need the other side of the coin of like, chill. It happens.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not the end of the world. No one died.
Yeah.
It's all going well.
So seriously, guys, if you're listening and you're having a crappy week, we're sorry to hear that, but it happens to the best of us. Don't sweat it too much. Try and be proactive, but otherwise just chill. You will have a better week next week, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yes. And as they say, you learn more from your mistakes than your successes.
This is true.
Poof, mic drop.
Although successes are more fun, way more fun.
I like
Yeah,
it.
they are. But...
Cool. That's it from us. We'll see you next week, guys. Bye.
Cheerio.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks so much for listening to this week's episode. As always, you can find full show notes over at honestdesigners.com or find us over on iTunes and now Spotify by searching for The Honest Designers Show. And remember, we're now on social media too, if you search for Honest Designers. If today's episode helped you, then it would mean the world to us if you took just a moment to leave us a quick review over on iTunes, as this is one of the best ways for other designers to discover the show. Thanks again for tuning in, and we will see you next week right here on The Honest Designers Show.